Be ready? Start. It is the poor who suffer the most. We have to ensure that our anti-poverty programs are well targeted. The growing aspirations of the people will be reflected in the development strategy followed by the government led by the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and its mandate of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Allow me to assure this House that we have taken up the challenge in the right earnest. We shall leave no stone unturned in creating a vibrant and strong India. Para. The prevailing economic situation presents a great challenge. It calls for a conscious choice to be made by all of us. Should we allow this drift to carry on and watch helplessly? Should we allow our future to suffer because of our indecisiveness? Should we be victims of mere populism or wasteful expenditure? To me, the response and the remedy are both clear. The task before me today is very challenging because we need to revive growth, particularly in manufacturing and infrastructure, to raise adequate resources for our developmental needs. On the other hand, the task is simple if we accept the principle that we cannot spend beyond our means. We need to introduce fiscal prudence that will lead to fiscal consolidation and discipline. Fiscal prudence to me is of paramount importance because of considerations of intergenerational equity. We cannot leave behind a legacy of debt for our future generations. We cannot go on spending today, which would be financed by taxation at a future date. There is an urgent need to generate more resources to fuel the economy. For this, the tax to GDP ratio must be improved and non-tax revenues increased. We must remember that the decline in fiscal deficit from 5.7% of GDP in 2011-12 to 4.8% in 2012-13 and 4.5% in 2013-14 was mainly achieved by reduction in expenditure rather than by way of realization of higher revenue. Although the external sector witnessed a turnaround with the year ending with a current account deficit of 1.7% of the GDP against 4.7% in 2012-13. This was mainly achieved through restriction on non-essential imports and slowdown in overall aggregate demand. Going forward, we must continue to be watchful of the CAD para. My predecessor has set up a very difficult task of reducing fiscal deficit to 4.1% of the GDP in the current year. Considering that we had 2 years of low GDP growth and almost static industrial growth, a moderate increase in indirect taxes, a large subsidy burden, and not so encouraging tax buoyancy, the target of 4.1% fiscal deficit is indeed daunting. Difficult as it may appear, I have decided to accept this target as a challenge. One fails only when one stops trying. My roadmap for fiscal consolidation is a fiscal deficit of 3.5% for 2015 and 3% for 2016-17. I am conscious of the fact that Iraq crisis is leaving an impact on oil prices and the situation in the Middle East continues to be volatile. Monsoon this year appears more unpredictable, while inflation has remained at elevated levels relative to what is perceived as acceptable. There has been a gradual moderation in WPI recently from a high of 7.35% in 2012-13 and 5.98% in 2013-14. But we are still not out of the woods. We also must address fully the problem of black money, which is curse of our economy. Faced with these adversities, we have no option but to undertake some bold steps in order to enhance economic activity and spur growth in the economy. These steps are only the beginning of our effort to revive the growth spirit of the Indian economy. They are directional. My government is committed to the principle of minimum government, maximum governance. To achieve this goal, time has come to review the allocative and operational efficiencies of government expenditure to achieve maximum output. The government will constitute an expenditure management commission which will look into various aspects of expenditure reforms to be undertaken by the government. The commission will give its interim report within this financial year. I also propose to overhaul the subsidy regime, including food and petroleum subsidies, and make it more targeted while providing full protection to the marginalized, poor and SC/STs. A new urea policy would also be formulated. The debate whether to introduce a goods and services tax GST must now come to an end. We have discussed the issue for the past many years. Some states have been apprehensive about surrendering their taxation jurisdiction. Others want to be adequately compensated. I have discussed the matter with the states both individually and collectively. I do hope we are able to find a solution in the course of this year and approve the legislative scheme which enables the introduction of GST. This will streamline the tax administration, avoid harassment of the business, and result in higher revenue collection both for the center and the states. I assure all states that government will be more than fair in dealing with them. Stop.